So let's just dive right in. First of all, what is a natural swimming pool? Well, to remove some of the mystique about a natural swimming pool, there is nothing unique in the construction process or the construction materials of a natural swimming pool. We build natural swimming pools out of the same materials and construction methods that all regular swimming pools are constructed out of. It could be a gunite pool, it could be a fiberglass pool, it could be a vinyl pool, panel wall construction. So don't get all hung up on how the pool is built, because in many cases the project will define the construction method that's best suited for the needs of your specific project. Some may be more expensive than the other. It really is more of an engineering question than an NSP question. The one thing that is unique to a natural swimming pool, NSP, is that it's a biologically filtered pool. So we don't use any chemicals whatsoever. It's a constructed body of water, a closed system, isolated so that there is no infusion or intrusion of surface water runoff from heavy rains. There's no spring or stream or river that's feeding it. We want to control and close the area that's being defined as the natural swimming pool. So at least we have an understanding of what the biological filtration needs are. So we close the system. It is, BioNova does adhere to the construction standards and methods that are recognized and engineered as practices within the swimming pool industry. And what that means is, well, simply put it, they're safe to get into and get out of. So the depths, the diving and depth configuration, the slopes, entrance, egress is made so that it's safe for swimmers, bathers to easily and safely get into and get out of the vessel. And I will say that that is one of the differentiating things between BioNova's method for NSPs and simply just creating a swimming pond or a pond that you can swim in. Many ponds, the way they're designed, are kind of maybe dished out of the ground. They create a slope or a hazard that may not be easy to get into and out of. So our approach is to make sure that they're engineered and permitted as a swimming pool. If you speak to someone and say, oh yeah, well, I can build you a pond you can swim in, and wink, wink, nod, nod, it's okay, I would really caution you to understand the potential litigation that would be involved if someone was to be hurt in a pool that was not designed for swimming, but then was used for swimming. It's just not an environment that we want to be involved with. So all of our vessels are engineered according to the safety and construction standards for a swimming pool. And they do require a permit in most cases. As I mentioned before, they are all chemical free. We don't use a device. This is not a saltwater pool. There is no disinfectant oxidizer. And more pleasing is there is no water testing. There is no water balancing. The only maintenance required in a natural swimming pool is that you just clean it. And we'll talk more about those methods and processes here in a little bit. So from a standpoint of how it's naturally purified, the water is cleaned and clarified with the controlled and directed flow of water through a biological filter. Now, the biological filter can be primarily one of two types. The first type is what we refer to as a bioswim pond. Those are, as the picture on the screen shows you, integrated with aquatic plants. There is a wetlands area, and typically this wetlands area is the same square footage and size as the swimming area. So from a standpoint of design, we're, in these bioswim ponds, we're building a swimming pool for the plants and one for the people. And this picture that you see on the screen, you can notice that actually this was a single excavation. You can see that the wetlands area around the perimeter is the same square footage as the area that's allocated here for the swimming area. The water flows slowly, and as the name indicates, a swim pond mimics the ecosystem that is typical of a pond. Slow moving water, plants, passive water filtration through what we call sedimentation filtration. And it does a wonderful job of encouraging a whole nother level of aquatic environment. The ecosystem that creates obviously welcomes in wildlife that is looking for and seeking a nice wetlands environment. You will see reptiles and amphibians, dragonflies, the assortment of flora and fauna that are typical to a pond. The other type is a biopool, in which the biological filtration is done without the use of plants. Now, they do have one thing in common, and that is both systems leverage the biological water treatment on biofilm. Now, biofilm in its own right is just a microbiological wonderland. It's a agglomeration, a combination of beneficial bacteria, fungi, algae, all living together in this community. The film itself encapsulates the community, serves as a kind of a sequestering medium for nutrients to adhere to and be stuck to, basically serving as kind of a temporary pantry of the nutrients that it's capturing to feed the beneficial bacteria and fungi that are residents of the biofilm. The biofilm is a very diverse microorganisms, system of microorganisms, all with their own unique capability to take the nutrients from the water and create them through their metabolic output, create the metabolic needs of others in the environment. So it is definitely a symbiotic environment where all are living off each other. So in that case, those are the 4 criteria that we use to define an NSP. Well-defined swimming area, it's a closed system, it is permitted and engineered as a swimming pool, and there are absolutely no chemicals used whatsoever in the treatment of the biological treatment of the water. This, let me show you some examples. This is a bio swim pond example. You can see the swimming area is actually here in the background. The separate pond area is full of lotuses and lilies, and I am not a plant botanist or aquatic botanist, but I know someone who is. And that diversity of the types of vegetation are usually planted in 3 different zones. There's marginal grasses that you see growing along here as well as here. There's some submerged aquatic plants. They have a different role in their role in this ecosystem. And then there's deep water plants. Those are the sexy plants, so to speak. The lotuses, you can see a couple here that are in bloom. And there's such a diversity in color and texture, heights, and basically there's some tropical species that you may be able to plant in your area of the country. But ultimately, when we begin creating the menu of plants for this type of system, they are specific to your ecosystem, specific to your climate. We're not going to try to put tropical plants that we normally find in Central Florida and install them in Minnesota or Seattle. We will work with our plant specialists and make sure that the diversity of the plants are specifically suited to your own climate zone. This other pool is a little bit less complex. It is a single excavation. This is a very common way that we can build a bioswim pond, where we actually create an excavation, and you can see the wetlands area surrounds the perimeter of this isolated swimming area. You can see the steps that are entering here on this side, so there's good entrance. But you'll also notice that this segregation wall isolates and protects the plants from swimmers. We don't want swimmers waiting around in the plants and disrupting the planted area. So we isolate those. There is some maintenance. As soon as you plant plants, whether they be in water or in the ground, you become a gardener. And as an aquatic gardener, there is seasonal requirements, typically in the spring and in the fall, where in the spring, you're going to be maybe thinning out any aggressive growth species. You'll notice some of the grasses sometimes will spread more rapidly than others. Some lilies and lotuses really have the tendency to spread and cover a big area. So there may be a little bit of thinning and pruning. In the fall, we want to cut back all the vegetation, typically right at the water line, and we'll remove that excessive vegetation so they don't end up in the water, decomposing and causing an additional organic mass that has to be acted on. Once that is done, then winterizing based on your area and climate is handled to either protect the area, protect the plumbing and the equipment, or it's going to be, if it's isolated and winterized properly and you're in a freezing climate, let it freeze and go ice skating if the ice is thick enough. The biopool, I just added this. This was one of the installations from our partner in Chile. Just to show, again, some diversity in style. You'll notice in many of our designs, based on the client's desire, that they like incorporating natural rock and features. The terrestrial planning tends to become a little bit more, a little closer to the edge of the pool. So as they grow, they tend to soften the edges of the pool. So this pool is actually a rectangular pool, but given the way that the coping and the surrounding area is landscaped, it softens the edge and gives a natural design. But at this point, I want to make sure that you understand the vessel does not make an NSP. It's the biological filter that makes it an NSP. We will work with our clients on the design to create an environment that matches the aesthetics that you're after. So they can be any number of forms and fashion. This particular one is a two-pot design, kind of very advanced in its architecture. You can see this has a vanishing edge where water is spilling over into the wetlands area that's below. Any of these engineering methods can be put into your pool. It's just a matter of the space you have to deal with and frankly, the budget you have to deal with. And we'll talk about some of the variables and options that will affect that. Also want to point out that we are very clear and want to be very clear in this presentation to help set the expectations that natural swimming pools are involved with living water. And living water means that in the swimming area itself, there will be beneficial bacteria and algae that are in the water column. We try to minimize that by creating an aggressive biological filter that will outcompete that biological need in the pool by the biology that's going on in the filter. But there will be a tint to the water, especially noticeable if you have a very white or very light colored interior. I think this is a great picture to show what we describe a chemically treated pool is kind of Windex blue, sparkling blue if it's well maintained. But in most cases, especially when we're using a swim pond type of design, there will be a tint to the water. So I'll caution you now, if your expectation is sparkling, brilliant, Windex clear water, no, that's not what this is. The water will be clear, but it will have a tint to it. You'll notice many of our designs actually have an interior surfacing coloration that's darker in colors. Darker colors, when you start playing with the dynamics and the physics of light, when we have a darker color interior, then the surface absorbs light as opposed to reflecting it. And it's that reflection and refraction of light that ends up making the tint more or less noticeable. So darker colors, grays, blues, we even have one that's called Eco Green that many like, will all lessen the appearance of that tint while giving it more of that natural look.